Hello, watercolorists. Today I am going to do a portrait and I'm going to start it very wetly. The point of this is to get away from being really meticulous with painting, especially when you're working from photos. Because with photos, the tendency is to want to really lock it all down, round every form, and get every last little shadow and dimple and curve and feature just right. And you can really suck all the life out of something doing that. So I'm dropping in some, let's see, blue. And you go, Bonnie, that's blue. I don't see any blue in a portrait, in the face of a person who I'm working from. Well, this is the underpainting, and it's just to organize the value structure. I like working with warm light, and there's nothing like laying in some cool shadows for establishing nice warm light. Now, I'm also trying to keep in mind the structure, because as long as I've got a nice sense of the skull, and I'm already thinking cranium, I put the drawing down first. You guys didn't need to see me doing a drawing of the photo. That's boring. This, however, you never know exactly what you're gonna get, so it can be fun. Now, I've got cranium, I've got eye sockets, I've got cheekbones, I've got the plane of the cheek, a little bit of shadow underneath the lip line, pyramid of the nose. Now, actually, in this photo that I'm working from, the lighting is very soft, and it's actually coming a little bit from underneath. So you don't have the standard light on the top, shadow on the bottom. So I'm going to rinse off the brush, just throw in a little bit of clean water, clean out some of that. Now, bonus points to leave some white of page, because that's going to give you a nice sparkle. So I'm going to find places to leave the white. Aha! Over here it's beginning to get a little dry on me. Now I can either throw in some blooms, go with the dry brush, or re-wet later. Okay, over here. I think I'm going to throw a little bit of tone in on that side. Keep the high contrast in the face rather than on the edge. Now I'm thinking about the structure of the eye. The eyeball is sitting inside some shadow. That probably will bloom out because it was pretty wet. So let me come in here with a little bit of dense pigment and a little bit of a lift. Now remember, I've got a ton of water in here. So when this dries, we're not going to be seeing a lot of dark blue. Nah, it'll fade off. Now, I'm seeing a lot of moisture on the edges as the paper is beginning to buckle, because A, it's not particularly expensive paper. I'm just sort of throwing down some portraits to have fun. I don't need to think about, museum quality right now. I just want to have some fun without being intimidated by a $15 piece of paper. So now the brush I'm using is the Scepter Gold. The paper I'm using is not my favorite, so, but it's what I have at home right now, and since we're sort of locked down, I can't go running off to the studio to get myself some of my fabulous, wonderful stuff. Oh well, you use what you have, and you have fun with it. Now, I think I better let this simmer down. Hello again, I'm back. I've dried this with my blow dryer, trying to move things forward. So now it's dry on the surface. Now I want to hit it with some more layers fairly wetly. The reason I didn't want to do it before was because I had things that were beginning to dry and areas that were still very wet, and if I kept going in with water, I'd get blooms everywhere. So I like those blooms. They're fun. They give it some interest, but I've let those dry. I've let those set in. I was using phthalo blue, Winsor blue, so that color doesn't lift that readily. So I can screw around with it a bit more, put a few more layers on it, and not worry about things shifting so much. Now, let's come in with some, let's see, something a little dramatic. Want to get some of these shadows in there. And I'm drawing with the brush a bit more now. Rinse, knock off the water. Okay, there we go. Now things are moving a little. Rinse, knock off the water. Hit it with a little bit more of this nice, warm color. Now, there is a drawing under there. It's a little bit hard to see now because I put the blue on it, but the lines are there. That's one of the reasons why I've got these strong lights on, so I can see through those strong phthalo blues to the very delicate pencil beneath. Now, you're more than welcome to use a more aggressive pencil line. That's fine, as long as you don't use really soft pencil that will do something nasty, like get muddy, get loose and muddy when the water hits it. That you don't want. But using a pencil line, or a pen even, that's waterproof, you could come in and really give a nice, interesting line everywhere. Okay, now I'm coming in again monochromatically, and I'm getting more interested in some of the other colors that are coming on. I still don't want sharp edges everywhere, but I'll soften it in a few places. Let's see. Oh, this mix is raw sienna and alizarin crimson. So when you think about it, you could think about raw sienna being something along the lines of a low saturation yellow, then you got your blue, and you got your red, the alizarin. So I'm working kind of a primary grouping here. Now, I could come in and up the amount of alizarin. I could come in, let's see, and throw a little bit of alizarin where the nostrils are. I'm going to come over that later. I just don't want it to be a focus. So easy to like, where is each nostril? I'm not that interested, to be perfectly honest. I want the believability of the structure of the face the triangle, the pyramid, I should say, of the nose. But I don't need every last little detail right now. What you can do if you want, okay, I'm blotting my brush from here. I just dipped it in alizarin up there. And down here is where I blotted the brush. So if I come in into very wet areas with dense pigment, the moisture on the page will pull that pigment off the brush and I'll get a nice soft line. Now in here, this is just water, and I blotted some of the water off. So I'm still respecting some lighter areas of the page. Let's see. The photo I'm working from, the woman has a medium light on her. It's not vivid. They're not spotlights. The reason I chose this, which is actually a little tougher to work from, because you don't have that nice bright light defining where the forms are coming up and getting the spotlight on them and where the forms are moving into shadow. It rounds a form beautifully that way. But it also becomes a little bit slavish. I can't screw around as much. So this gives me a little bit of freedom to muck around and just play with the paint, play with the wet and the dry. See what happens when I do this. Now I think I will soften that edge. I don't like a lot of hard edges everywhere, it's true. And if I push a little bit of water in there, I'm hoping to get a bloom that pushes out that way and defines that dark alizarin a little bit more. Now this, again, just clean water. And everything is still quite wet. Now I'm going to come in with some more phthalo blue mixed with alizarin. Woo! Purple! Purple, purple, purple. What fun. I'm still thinking about the cranium underneath the hair. And if it goes dry brush on that wash in the background, yay, that's fine by me. Now I can always come back in and glaze. I can put some burnt umber or some raw sienna over the brow. Yeah. Rinse, knock off the excess, pull up the edge if you want to refine that. Now, that's still a little too wet for me to go into. Let's see this. Get the roundness of the lid. Get a little bit of shadow in there. Now remember, this eye is further away. I don't really want even focus on both sides. It's too much. You know, usually you can just focus on one side of a person's head. You can't look in both eyes. So I might be less detailed over on that side. Here, that's still a little too wet for me to go in. It's just going to go, I've got a dip in the paper there. It's buckling a little bit, and if I go into that, ooh, everything's going to slide into that buckle. So let me go and amuse myself elsewhere. So, yeah, just enjoy having some fun with your brush. Let's see. This comes in here. And I think I'm going to come in with something a little bit darker than the Sienna Alizarin mix for her neck. Now, here's the Sienna and the Alizarin again. And I think I might up the alizarin a little bit more. Come in. Yes, I'm defining that wonderful sternocleidoid mastoid muscle. Comes in from right there, right behind the ear, the mastoid process. Now, I'm going to pick a little bit of that light up. If I've lived a good life, maybe it'll bloom out where I want it to bloom out. I shall talk to the art fairies about it. Encouraging a little bloom that way. Yeah, you know me, I like to rock the paper. I like to let gravity do a little bit of the work for me. Okay, I can still see that edge there. Now, how are we doing up here? I think I'm probably going to be pausing in a second to go use the blow dryer. Let's just get a tone over here. And a little bit of a dense reddish purple over there. I mean, you don't really need to immortalize every last fold in the ear. You don't. If you're doing photoreal portrait, if you're getting paid for the portrait, hey, you may want to do it. But right now, just that softness. Ooh, I've got a fun bloom going. I like that. So I'm going to turn this off for a second, go dry it, and be right back. Okay, got this layer dry. So, coming back in with some of the shadows in the eye. I'm never quite comfortable working with this white eye in there. Always makes me a little bit nervous. It messes up the value structure. So I want to come in, get a sense of that shadow. Now remember, there's no such thing as the white of the eye when you've got the eyeball in the socket and a light not coming straight up into the eye. What's going to happen is you're going to get a shadow from the lid on the white of the eye. So you want to get a sense of lightness there, but you don't have to like come in and preserve the white of the paper there. Now, I'm touching in a little shadow right in there because remember, it's a ball of the eye. As the form moves down into the shadows, you know, you want to get a sense of that. Okay, there's going to be a little bit more light here, a little bit more shadow over there. Then it's a little tricky when you're working from a photo that has a woman there, or a guy, whoever, wearing some makeup. The images that I choose for classes, I try to avoid the makeup issue. You can work with it, you can get funky with it, you know, go nuts with it. But I find that if you are slavish to the makeup, you may wind up losing the form. So, you know, the model in this photo has some eyeliner on, I assume. So I'm trying not to recreate the eyeliner. Now, the nostrils, the top of the nostril is just defining lovely. Thank you, brush. Lost the point on that. The top of the nostrils define what shape the end of the nose is. Yeah, is that a ball on the end of the nose? Is it a hook nose? What are we talking about here? So let's see if I can come in with dense pigment, blotting the body of the brush. Okay. So right up in there, I want to define what's going on at the end of the nose, and then the nostril flares around. Don't spend a lot of time on that. I mean, people really don't need to be looking at the nostrils when they're looking at your painting. If they're softer, yay, but I just want to define what's going on there. I don't want to immortalize, you know, the holes in her nose. So let me come in with some damp. Let me bring that light in there. Now, I'll tidy that up, but it got a little too damp for me to go mess with it. And although it's very tempting for me to come in, I know what I want to do. If that'll bloom for me, I would like that. A bloom will work right now, and that'll push the pigment up. I'll get back to that in a second, see what the paint's doing. In the lips, the upper lip is going to be in a little bit more shadow than the lower lip. So the upper lip, for a lot of people, catches the shadow. You know, it's aimed down. Some people have very full lips, and they may catch a little bit of a highlight in here. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to just run a little bit of a softness there, because the lip is going to cast a shadow on the teeth. So I think I want to move that edge out. Yeah, let me just move the edge out and not get squeamish about just using some paint. There. Not being squeamish. Let's just paint. So the lower lip is catching a bit more light. Remember, I just hit this with a lot of water. When this dries, it'll be barely there. Now, let me come in, here. I want to define that shadow. And not like chop her head off. So, shadow defined. Coming in with a little bit more warmth, respecting what's going on with the musculature there. Gotta have that muscle. I love that muscle. Tells me that the neck is twisted. She's turning her head, she's looking at us. It gives the pose movement, which is a nice thing. Now, given that nice red, I'm going to come in. The shadow underneath her hair should have some of that red, I think. See, you can come back in and re-dampen. I just hit this with some clean water because I didn't like that crisp edge. So, given the extra water, there we go, that to that, and then that's still pretty wet. I'm not going to come in with the blue there yet. Let me come in with some of the blue, and I think a smidgen of the raw sienna, just a smidgen. Now, raw sienna is so transparent that, you know, you can really throw a bucket of the stuff on a painting and you're still going to have transparency. I miss some of my other brushes, which are in my studio, as I said, but I'll stop whining and just enjoy what I have, because I can play. I won't be so serious. I'm always too serious. Okay, so let me play with this. Okay, let that blue sort of leach around, come in there. I don't want to do the full painting. I'll finish this, I'll post it, but I want you to see how I'm starting so loosely. I don't want you to spend the whole evening watching me having a fun time painting. I want you to paint. Now, over here, I'll knock a little bit of warmth in there. But this is very wet. I'm doing a lot of wet in, wet mixing on the surface. Let's see. I picked up the blue. I think I want to come back in and reaffirm. Oops. I don't want the quinacridone. I'm working the alizarin. So now I am going to have to let this simmer down at some point again, because if I keep going this wetly, I'm going to find that I have mud. So I do want to come in and define that little bit of area in here, because this is going to tip the side of her face back. So now let me pause that. Actually, I want to go up here. Before I pause it, let me go up there. Let me go have some fun. Blue, there you go. Oh my God, Bonnie, you picked up blue. Yeah, I know. It's just fun. If I want to glaze it down, I can. So here, I'll be more serious. I'll use some sepia. This is my burnt umber. Some blue got in my burnt umber. Oh well. If a model has loose flowing hair, this is an opportunity for brushwork. You do not have to document each curl. It's okay. What you want is just some fun time with the brush. Now, I'm still thinking the cranium's up here. And let's see, we can come in with something that gives a little bit more density to the hair. The photo of the model, actually, the hair is kind of tied back and a little thin, which isn't really what I want. Now, in here, I could have come in with purple. I could have come in with blue. you know, let yourself have a good time with it. I just happen to have the brown on my brush, that burnt umber. Now, let's see about, I flattened my brush. I pressed it in so that you can see it's very flat one way and narrow the other. So if I want to come in with a big broad stroke, I can. If I want to come in with a little bitty narrow stroke, I can. So in here, the corner of her eye is catching a little shadow. Rinse, knock off the excess moisture. Pull that up if you don't want that much. I want to define this. Good. And so you can see how I'm building this with loose flowing color. You know, that initial wash that I put on, you can see the blue creeping out from behind her face, but it's fine because it locates her in atmosphere. There's some blues that are, you know, weaving through her portrait. That's fine. You know, you get a sense of her being in that atmosphere, picking up color bounce from the blues around her. So I would like to work more into this. I will have a good time working into this. I'm going to round the nose with a little lift. I'm going to play with maybe a little bit more color in here, maybe a few more brush strokes in there, but I want you to go paint.